They only got their identity from family, from God, and from family. They were not. They had no leaders, and they were better off.
They became organized.
See, now this is what.
And that's a good point. They became organized.
This is why you need to understand about a Hebrew Israelite, because when everybody understands who they are and why things happen the way that they happen.
Bro, this is S-tier delusion. Like, this is like S-tier delusion, bro.
You love white people?
I love everybody.
But I'm only asking about white people only.
Well, I'm gonna keep saying everybody because I don't want to exclude nobody. So
how about you? You love white people?
I love, like, we're not born to hate anyone.
Right.
So.
And do you love white people?
I love all people.
Do you love white people?
Are they considered people?
Well, they're the only group I'm asking about. Do you love racist. White people?
Look, I have friends that are from the Caucasian race.
Do you love white people? The Caucasian.
Caucasian is white.
Right. Do you love them?
I love everybody. That's. I mean, we answer. Yeah, we're answering.
How do you guys feel about their answer? How do you guys feel about it? Because some people will interpret it as naturally racist, and some people will be like, it's okay. And I understand both perspectives. The equivalent of this would be if somebody says, does Black Lives Matter? And somebody responds and said, all lives matter. Every life matters. That isn't them necessarily negating what you're saying. They're just kind of not directly answering and saying yes or no. Depending on how you look at it, it could be a reasonable answer. It could be a dog whistle answer. Nonetheless, we're going to get into this video. These people in the purple headbands and stuff, they're called Black Israelites, and they call Jesse Lee Peterson racist. I don't know what's going to happen in this interview, but we're going to find out together. Make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get into it.
And so what's the plan? Do you plan on moving back to Israel?
Well, what's going to happen is, according to the Bible, the Most High is going to. You want to get some scriptures on this?
Oh, yeah, but let me ask you this first. You said that white people and other people are oppressing black people, right?
Yes.
Am I right?
Yeah, you don't think you're under oppression right now?
In what way are they oppressing black people?
Okay, well, first of all, probably like 70% of our people were in jail, right?
Right.
In prison.
What?
Gang activity and drug activity is set up by the government. If I wanted to go get a loan, right,
what,
in a bank or whatever, they will probably turn me down.
Why?
But other nations can come over here that don't even live here and get a loan off the bat.
Bro, I've never been walking in the hood. I've never been in the hood in the middle of the night with my chain tucked in my wallet in my pocket and said, "Ooh, I hope the government doesn't rob me right now." I've never been driving down the street in a bad neighborhood and said, "Ooh, I hope the government doesn't stand in front of my car and try to rob me." Oh, I never woken up in the middle of the night after I heard a strange knocking and said, "Ooh, I hope the government's not trying to break in my house." Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? The government, bro? I don't fear the government when I wake up every day. I don't fear anyone when I wake up every day. Let me start there. But y'all get what I'm saying, right? Y'all get what I'm saying. When you go to the hood, you're not worried about the government doing something to you. I'm worried about someone who looks like me doing something to me when I'm in these neighborhoods. Let's be real. I'm not worried about the government. The government protects majority. It doesn't try to rob me when I'm walking in the middle of Southeast DC.
So you got to see that we are actually being held down as a nation. And this is a part of the curses of Deuteronomy 28, because he said that you will be oppressed and brought to a land that is not yours. And so we've been here. The first slave, they say the first slave ship came here 1619, right? It's 2018. So we almost in a 400-year period, right? So we were supposed to be oppressed for almost 400 years. So we're approaching that time. Not saying that when we get to 400 years, that's when the Mashiach gonna come back, but we are approaching and we're getting closer to our curses being lifted off of us, because we've been held down for 400 years.
Why wouldn't they let you have a loan at the bank? If you went to the bank and said, "Hey, I'd like to get a loan," they would say no to you?
More than I have tried to get a loan a couple of times, and I had all of the qualifications that they asked me for,
And they did
and
not.
then they made me jump through a million hoops.
All right.
And then other people that I know that's not of the same ethnicity as myself, they can go in there and get a loan. I was about to pay him to go get a loan for me.
But so, do they? So they didn't let you have it because you were black?
I believe that's the reason.
You believe the same thing?
We go through a lot of things with that. Our eyes are open now to a lot of things we may not have saw before. So little things like that we recognize.
Is it possible that due to your anger toward them that you may be living in an illusion?
Who has
We
anger
don't have-
towards
yeah.
It
anybody?
has nothing to do with color.
We don't have any anger towards
we're
anyone.
not angry people.
All we trying to do.
Who are the angry people?
We're not angry
Oh, you
people.
two are not.
Yeah.
Oh, but everybody else in them.
No, I'm not saying everyone
black.
is. I'm just saying, that's a lot of the stereotypes we
So
get.
you don't think that
you
our
mentioned-
people is under oppression?
Not because of the white man.
Oh, you don't? Who ruling the world right
They
now?
are under oppression because they have hatred in their hearts, and that hatred in their hearts is what
Who got
holding them
hatred in their
back.
hearts?
Black people.
Black
So you
people
have
got
hatred in your heart?
I had it, but it's gone now.
Okay, so
And it
Wow.
doesn't start with the white people. It starts with most black men and women hate their mothers and grandmothers. And because they won't forgive them, they're living in darkness. And in that darkness, they're living in illusion. And so they've been told by the enemies of good that it's the white man, when it's really they're hating their mothers and yearning for their fathers.
So
Have you ever heard of Stockholm syndrome?
Yes,
You know what that is?
yes.
What is it?
It's when Patty Davis was captured by the Black Panthers, and they tortured her, and she began to hate them. And once she began to hate them, she identified with them and started supporting them.
Okay.
As you become
So
attracted
are
to
you
what you hate.
you talking like Patty Hearst right now?
How's that?
Because you loving the oppressor. Now, is our nation being oppressed right now?
No,
Bro,
not
they're
by white
delusional,
people.
bro. They're delusional.
Who are we getting oppressed by then?
Black people.
That's true.
I don't understand.
That's facts.
So I do love all people. I love white people. I
But
love
you don't love
the
black
Jews. I love the blacks. But you can't say you love the whites.
Yes, I did. I said I love everybody.
No, everybody is not white. You said something else that I got to get to. You said that an example of being oppressed is that the blacks are in jail, they're committing violence, gang members and stuff like that. Do you blame white people for that?
Yeah,
You do.
yeah.
So I grew up under the Jim Crow laws.
It's not. It's
I
not.
remember-
It's not fully their fault.
I remember for colors only signs, for whites only signs, I was restricted to where I could live. But because we had fathers and mothers getting married, out of wedlock birth was an embarrassment. Abortion was unheard of. Blacks were taught to work and build. I had family members who owned land. Some of them never worked the plantation because they owned land and did their own thing. They were not going to jail. I didn't grow up with one person going to jail. No one around me was going to jail. If white people were oppressing and we were under the Jim Crow laws and they were causing black on black violence and incarceration, why didn't we see it then instead of now? Why didn't we see it then?
So you don't think that that's hatred?
No, but tell
From-
me
from
why
the-
the question is, if it's the fault of the oppressor that blacks are in jail, why didn't we see it back then as opposed to now?
Why didn't we see it back in Jim Crow days?
Yes.
Actually, our people was more actually structured back in those days. They was fighting for their equal rights. They was more organized. They was.
But they were not organized.
Yeah, right
They
now.
weren't even thinking of
right
being
now,
organized.
everybody is going
It's
for
not
self.
true. They were not organized at all. They were living. They were not identifying with preachers. They were not identifying with black politicians or anybody. They only got their identity from family, from God, and from family. They were not. They had no leaders, and they were better
They
off.
became
Wait, let me say
organized.
something. See, now this is what.
And
this
that's a
is-
good
this is
point.
why-
They became organized.
This is why you need to understand about a Hebrew Israelite. Because
Bro,
when
what is he
everybody
talking
understands who they are and why things happen the way that they happen, then you will understand where you're going. You will understand what's taking.
Bro, this is S tier delusion. Like, this is like S tier delusion, bro. S tier delusion. This is like next level NBA D1 level delusion. What are you talking about, a Hebrew Israelite? How did you even get to this topic from him saying that white people aren't the natural oppressors of black people. He just said, forget this, I'm losing this debate. Let me just change it to Hebrew Israelites. The fact is, in order to believe that black people are oppressed by white people, you would have to believe just fundamentally that you are today in our current state getting depressed. What Jesse Lee Peterson is saying is he doesn't even identify with being oppressed in general by anyone. He doesn't even identify with that. But if he were to if he were to put oppression on anyone, it would be other black people. Because if you look at our communities, the number one cause of young black boys is homicide by other black boys. When you look at those gangster movies, when they're robbing and stealing, they're robbing and stealing from other black people, breaking in other black people's homes. So what am I getting at exactly? I'm not trying to demonize the black race. Obviously, I'm not trying to do that because I don't necessarily believe that anyone's being oppressed. What I do believe, though, is that the biggest problems in the black community are caused by other black people in this state and time. At one point, that wasn't the case. Today, it is the case. And when you're looking at the average white person, because America is 70% white, you have to say that this 70 percentile is oppressing this 13 percentile of African Americans, which I don't believe. I believe that our biggest issues are caused by ourselves. If you look at our cities, the majority black cities are led by black people. If you look at our neighborhoods, a lot of the crime rates in our neighborhoods are committed by black people. Our biggest issues, our cultural issues, are perpetuated by black people. So if we solve these issues and then we still weren't getting the money we wanted, we still weren't getting to the levels we wanted, then we can argue that there's some outward systemic oppression. However, currently, as it's sitting, we are our biggest people holding us back.
Place, you understand that we need to move forward and do what we got to do for the Most High.
But why didn't we see incarceration and abortion and all that junk during the Jim Crow era, as opposed to now when blacks are free? If it's a white man
well, you
fault,
know that abortion is being pushed by the government upon our black people.
I know, but the point is, when blacks were under those laws, why didn't we see incarceration and all that happening then, as opposed to now?
Well, right now, I think that they locking a lot more of us up. They have the 3-strike law, right? So you can get in trouble for one thing, and you can get 3 strikes off that one thing.
Don't commit no crimes.
So now our brothers and now the jail.
But you're not telling me why it wasn't out of control prior to the Jim Crow laws. Prior to overcoming the Jim Crow laws. Why didn't we see it then if it's the white man who is oppressing black people?
They did see it then. You don't think
didn't grow up
who was they marching against?
Right,
who was spraying us with water hoses?
That's oppression.
But it wasn't oppression. It was a wrong law that was put on by the government, Democratic Party, by the way, the government, and it wasn't oppressing us. We didn't feel oppressed. We saw the signs. But because we were free within and we believed in God. Did Martin Luther King think
he was getting oppressed?
No. The only thing that Martin Luther King did and should have done and then dropped it was to fight to change the laws, and so that the same laws that governed and protected white folks were applied to black people. Other than that, blacks would have been fine even today.
The white people that you love go against you on that. They gave Martin Luther King his own day.
When you say that I love...
because they think that the things that he was fighting for was justified. You wouldn't even be able to sit in front of the bus if it weren't for Martin Luther King.
That's why they need to change the laws.
Huh?
That's why they need to change the laws, because...
I disagree with him on that. Martin Luther King was definitely, literally being oppressed. He literally was being oppressed. I don't have a better way of saying it. But Martin Luther King, that was in the 1960s. I think it was the 1960s, 75 years ago, almost 100 years ago. We're in an entirely new time period now. We need to be at least looking at the past 50 years, the past 40 years. That's what I think.
he had to do drastic things to change the laws, and he did his with peace. We got Malcolm X.
When you say the white people that I love, am I not supposed to love them?
Yeah, I'm saying you love them.
Should I love white people?
But do you think you white?
So let me ask.
Or do you think you what are you?
I'm asking you, should I love white people?
Yeah.
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 Well, why you say the white people that you're supposed to love? As though I shouldn't love them.
Because what I'm saying is the way that you're expressing your love is different from mine.
How's that?
Because you're condoning wickedness.
How's that?
Because it's a lot of wickedness that takes place that they have done against our people, and you want to have a blind eye to it.
How am I having a blind eye?
It's like
okay,
you're
now
not
when we came over here in slave ships, was that racism?
No.
That wasn't racism?
He just playing.
Why do you say
What
that?
show we on, yo?
Why do you say that was racism?
To capture.
It was capitalism. I'll say that.
And force people to go somewhere that they don't want to go.
And who were the racists promoting that, doing that? Who were the people doing that?
The so-called white man.
No, that's not true.
It's not true.
Black people were sold into slavery by blacks, wealthy, to the Arabs.
Let's get Psalms 83.
Yeah,
it was the Arabs.
Let's get Psalms 83 real
Let me
quick.
just finish this, and
All
then
right.
we'll get to that. We will.
Okay.
It was the Arabs who sold the blacks across the world. It wasn't white people who just tiptoed over to Africa and just bought took white folks. They were being sold by other black people. Is that racism for black? And they are still doing that today in parts of Africa where blacks are enslaved by other blacks and Arabs. Is that racism?
Every black person is not the
Is that racist?
Okay, so you wanna justify
No, I'm actually
black people
racism.
going against black people, but you don't want to look at white people at all.
No,
like
just
nothing
asking.
that they have done.
No, what he's saying is that the transatlantic slave trade, when it was in its prime, wasn't. I'm not gonna say it wasn't racist. He's saying that the fundamental movement behind it wasn't a racist movement. It was a capitalist, evil movement to sell people. But they were looking at it from, we want to make this money and we're going to buy slaves to make this money. A capitalist thing. And he brought up the example of other black people selling other black people into slavery. That's not racism. That's just, not just, but that's capitalism. It did, however, turn into racism at one point in history. It did turn into racism. However, its start wasn't because of racism necessarily, if that makes sense. Nonetheless, let me know what you guys think about this video. My name is LFR Jojo, and I'll see you on the next one.